How can I get over a relationship? Everyone, my name is TJ and I am one of the interns at Bounce Back Generation. And I also work as a teen counselor. I was able to ask them if they were able to ask someone a question of anything about life, what would you ask them if they had the answer? Today, I'm here not just as me speaking, but for the voice of them.
On the subject of why do relationships go wrong, and this kind of will get us into talking about why they go right. There's a husband and wife couple that have studied relationships for decades, and they have boiled it down to one single thing that is the indicator that a relationship is not going to last. So guess what it is?
I want to say something. I'm kind of split. Something like communication or like respect or something.
Yes, it is when you communicate with disrespect. The minute you start communicating with disrespect, you have started to kill that relationship. So if your wife comes to you and you're quiet, and I don't know, give me a scenario where you could say something that is extremely disrespectful versus understanding where she's coming from, at least giving her the respect that you're a valid person.
I don't do this as much because I've learned some very hard lessons from it. But I would say like offhand, I'm not like offhand things, not even thinking about it, just something about what she's wearing or something about what she said, and all of a sudden like she'd be crying, and I'd just kind of be like whoa. It took me a while to understand, because we had to talk about it, that like some of the things I would say, especially over time, it was like started to kind of build a narrative of what I deeply thought. And so a joke repeated a couple of times over the year became, okay, like, is this a joke or is it real? And to me, I guess like it was a joke, but like I also had to accept like there was some like truth in what I said, and I didn't have the emotional maturity to just talk about it. I would say like an offhand thing in a moment of stress.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really big issue. And she would do the same thing, but just in a different way. And it's still like one of the things that we're really trying to work on, just kind of like biting our tongue. And I kind of told you before we started the podcast, running some of our arguments through ChatGPT to clean it up, to kind of clean it up a little bit before we send it.
So wait, explain to everybody what you do with ChatGPT, because it's pretty interesting. And I don't recommend this to everybody. I think you have to be in a particular frame of mind and agreement with each other in order to do this. But explain how you're using ChatGPT with your arguments.
For a little bit of context, there's like this. It must have been an Instagram reel or a YouTube video that I saw, and the story must be older than the reel that I saw it in. But it was basically like there was a family of three, and the boy would say hurtful things to his mother every once in a while because he was angry, and kids do that. And the father said, okay, every time you say something hurtful to your mom, go put a nail in the fence. Go hammer a nail in the fence. And so over time, like a whole bunch of these nails kind of piled up, but then the boy kind of matured. And now the father said, okay, every time you say something nice or you atone for what you said, you take a nail out of the fence. And so eventually all the nails were gone, but all the holes were still there. And so I've really kind of internalized this in like just saying things like things that I might not know hurt my wife, or things that she doesn't know that hurt me. Even if you apologize, even if you heal, even if you move on, it's like you get a cut, or you get a cut on your skin, like the cut may heal, you still have the scar. And when those scars add up, it gets hard to kind of breathe. It gets hard to move. When you look at it, you see all the holes, you see the scars. And so normally in our arguments, we would just, the easiest way to get through a whole bunch of stuff, especially when it piles up, would just find like, you just got to let it fly. You just got to let it loose. And then after we got all of our anger out, or our frustration, our sadness, whatever out. But then I noticed, even when we do that, we're saying all these things that, oh, well, like whatever I said in that argument, even though it was fixed, she's still thinking about it in our next argument, or like, I'm still thinking about this. It hasn't
resolved itself. Right.
And it's not because the actual solution wasn't found. It was just the fact that you said that, and that really hurt, and it still hurts. And I've forgiven you, but it's still there.
Mhm.
And so now what we do, or we have like a voice note where we kind of just like vent to chat gpt. We just vent, we get all of our anger out, every like the raw emotion, everything that you would never say to somebody, we say it to chat gpt and say, and kind of prompt it like, okay, so like what in here is the actual problem? Like get rid of all my emotion, all my anger. What's the actual thing I'm mad about? What's the actual thing that's hurting right now? And then that's what we bring to each other. So this is what I'm upset about. How can we solve this?
So
Rather
you're
than,
talking, yeah, you're using it for problem solving to get through the, like you said, get through the emotions to actually figure out what is it that that other person, that you can communicate in a way the other person can say, okay, here's what I need, in a very clean way. And I think that could be effective. But let's back up a little bit, because one of the things that, well, we can get into it, is how to be really good at relationships. So I think what you're at the point where you're in the relationship already. You're married, you've been together for several years. But let's back up and talk about, how do you become good at actually getting into a relationship? So let's say that, you're like, I'm lonely and I want to be with somebody. How are you going to start that process? Okay, I guess, number one, you're going to find somebody that you're interested in. Then number
you know,
two, you're going to
I,
approach them, right? There's a lot of steps there. So go ahead.
well, I wouldn't even start like I'm gonna find someone I'm interested in. It seems super simple. It's not. I would start with like, I'm going to find somebody. Like I'm gonna get myself in the vicinity of people.
Yes, you are not going to meet anyone if you're playing video games, or even online. I mean, I know people meet online. It happens. Maybe you can start online, but I don't know. You're more in that world. I do not do online dating or anything like that. I did it one time. I wouldn't do it again because I find it weird. But for a lot of people it works. So I'm not going to say anything bad about it. But you talk more about that because you would know more.
Well, I think to find someone that you're interested in is super difficult because you don't. I don't even know what I'm interested in.
Yeah, right. That's why I don't do
And,
it. How can you tell online that you're going to be interested in that person besides their physical appearance on a
and so
picture or a video?
And so I think the best, like if you see, an attractive person, you want to go talk to them, like sure, go do that. Some people are able to do that, but I think the easiest thing is like go for a walk at the same park a couple of times a week, go to the same grocery store, volunteer for a nonprofit, like do something where you're doing something consistently and you can be around people consistently, and then over time see if someone just naturally just kind of keeps capturing your interest, and you're sharing a little bit of space, you get to see them, you got to get to see them from afar a little bit, and then you might have the opportunity to talk or have an exchange, and then you kind of deepen that a little bit, and then maybe it's exactly like getting your kids to have friends. You take them to the park, they might see somebody, they might talk, you go to the park 10 times, and then all of a sudden they want to play together, and then you set up a play date outside of the park, and then
Right.
and then they're best friends. Then you're in a
Well,
relationship.
well, let me back up even before that. Work on the relationships that you do have. So if you have siblings, if your parents, the friend that you've had since second grade, figure out where if you want to deepen those relationships. So we have what we call the 6 building blocks for life. And these are the 6 things that everybody needs to have in their life in order to stand up upon them and be able to be resilient. In other words, be able to handle the stressors that are coming our way. And one of the most important ones is that relationship. And what we say is, all you need really to survive in this world, the minimum you need, is one relationship with a person who feels that you feel connected to and also feels responsible to you, for you. And you could be a grown person, but you need to have someone out there, at least one person that you can say, if I was stranded in the middle of a desert somewhere, who would I call? Besides a tow truck, if I ran out of money when I was traveling, do I have someone that I can call? If the worst news ever hit me, some personal tragedy, do I have someone that I know is going to be there for me to pick me up off the ground and help me to take the next step in my life. That's the first thing you should work on, because everything else is going to follow from that. And that means having conversations with people, having that conversation with your best friend or your mom, or, you know, the cousin that's always been like a sister to you or whatever, that, you know, I need to have in order to feel stable and good in my life. I need to know that there's somebody there behind me to catch me when I fall. Start there, then start saying, okay, now I need to have that romantic relationship or that best friend that I can really, whatever it is that you're looking for in your relationships.
So what about that makes someone, or how does that segue into what makes someone great at relationships? If we look past specifically romantic relationships, and at the deepest level, is it that responsibility that makes somebody great? Like being able
Yeah.
to be like, I guess it is kind of a skill to be cared for in a sense. Like a lot of people won't allow themselves to be cared for.
Bingo. That's right. Yes, because in order to develop that relationship, you have to, number one, say, I'm worthy of having someone out there in this world care about what happens to me. And by the way, it could be reciprocal. You could be doing that for the other person, or the other person may say, I have 10 people. You don't have to be that person for me, but maybe there's somebody else that you can be that person for. So it's learning how to be the giver and the taker of that kind of sense of connection to another human being that feels more than just, hey, we hang out and we have fun and we do stuff together. But the minute I reach out for you, you're like, oh, honey, that's too much for me. I'm not that kind of person for you. I mean, that's the horrible to find out. And many times we think we have that person lined up and they're not actually there. So number one, you deserve to have that person, and you probably have it in you to be that person for somebody else. Number two is you have to have that conversation. You have to be able to step out of this. I wonder if they're there. I wonder if they'd be there for me. I wonder if I'm worthy of having them for me. And that process of having that conversation, which is not a complex conversation, it is, you know, hey, you've been my best friend since we were in second grade. And I feel like I would be there for you for no matter what happened. Do you feel like you can be there for me, even though we live thousands of miles apart and da da da? Yeah, I've always thought you were that person for me all the time. I've had that conversation with my best friend since we were babies, you know, who lives in Indiana now. But I've had that conversation with her, like, you know, you're like my sister, and she's like, you're like mine, and I'll be there for you, and I'll be there for you. And she's married and she's got lots of friends and everything. But just having that conversation is such a grounding feeling to know that somebody out there loves you like that. And you can have that conversation. I have siblings I've had conversations like that with. I've had other friends. So I think that is that's what you're going to root yourself in before you go out and seek that complicated romantic relationship.
And if I could just add a note for anyone, I used to be the kind of person, and unfortunately still am. I'm finding out that, oh, you know, that's corny. That's soft. That's no, I can take care of people. People can take care of me. Like that's great. Like brush it over as not important. But imagine trying to look in your mom's or your dad's eyes, or your girlfriend, your boyfriend's eyes, or, you know, your best friend's eyes, and just asking, will you be there for me? Or how can I be there for you?
Mm-hmm.
And as you imagine it, see if you flinch, or you try to look away, or you get a weird feeling, or you get awkward, or you get tense.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if any of that pops up, you haven't fully accepted that. And even with my wife at times, or my parents, or whoever, you know, I guess my kids, I can look them in the eye and be like, yeah, I'm there. But sometimes with my wife, it's like the answer is yes. It's an obvious yes, of course. But there's something in me, there's still some friction that's still not wanting to accept. And for me, and maybe for everybody, I don't know, it's an ongoing journey of that acceptance, and kind of finding that spot in you, and also refiguring it out at different phases.
Yeah, so you're going to change. Well, I look at it like it's your own personal test. It's your litmus test to say, where am I in how I feel about myself and my right to have good relationships? Do I actually believe that people do love me? Do I actually believe that I deserve to have loving, supportive relationships? And if you can't ask the people that are closest to you that question, will you be there for me if something bad were to happen? And if you don't feel like you can give that to that person or someone else, now you know, wait a minute, something needs to be mended inside of me. Something needs to be confronted inside of me, because all of us, I don't care what the worst person in the world, every single one of us needs, at the most root level of who we are as human beings, from an evolutionary, neuroscientific, philosophical, psychological basis, we at our very core need that one thing: to be loved and to love other people. And we need to confront it if we don't feel that.
I think this leads perfectly into the last section. Like at the deepest level, how do you be okay, and how do you find it if you don't have that? But how to be okay when it just doesn't work?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Yeah, you go to somebody and you think that you're in love, and you either ask them that question, or you find out in the worst way that, you got in an accident, for example, and you're not going to be okay for a while, and they walk away. That's a terrible feeling. Or you're just being yourself and you think everything's okay, and then they say, oh, I just never really felt like that. You're not really the one for me. It's a terrible feeling. The only way that I know to get over that is to turn inward and be there for yourself. You become the thing that you thought that person was going to do for you, you have to do for yourself. And that's going to feel like, I'm already hobbled, I'm already missing a leg and an arm because this was so painful to go through. But that is growth. That is how you become the person that you want to be. And I want to add something really quickly before you jump in, is that I often think, and consider this, that we look for people who we feel are going to fit our puzzle, right? I'm missing these 3 things and you have those 3 things. So that's why we're going to work, because you're going to make it work for me. You're going to be that crutch that I needed in X, Y, and Z ways. And that's also very traditionally how we look at, especially like marriage, like, oh, the opposites attract, and I'm going to be the wonderful, soft, woman that's going to take care of everything. And I'm going to be the strong man who's going to, take care of bringing home the money. We like that kind of idea. It's not a reality in real relationships, but it is that ideal. And so if you now you have to realize, well, I think I have to be that for myself. People don't like to know that, to hear that.
No, people don't like to hear that. And, I will say that I think even in my marriage, like there's still loneliness. There are still periods that don't feel like they're working.
Yeah.
And I guess maybe it doesn't make super, like in essence, there's somebody there's a relationship and it's working, but realizing that, maybe what you thought wasn't what it is. And that doesn't mean that there isn't love, but I think there have been many situations where I thought, okay, this is my puzzle, like the puzzle piece, like you cover this, I cover this.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, like, that's not realistic. And you still have to be whole at the end of the day, or you'll be sorely disappointed if you're looking to someone to fill in your weaknesses or your gaps, or to make you feel happy or to make you feel loved. Yeah. They can do that all they want. But if you don't have that within yourself, like if you're like, I still feel that way now sometimes. And I have to be like, oh shit, why is this need not being met? It's not her. There's something within me that I kind of have to look at. Yeah. And then it's not until I'm able to look at that and solve that, or maybe not like it's a problem to be fixed, but I'm able to heal that. I'm able to have awareness of that. Then can I come back to the relationship whole and appreciative and grateful for what she brings, but realizing that, no, I bring something too. And I have to be solid for this. I have to bring 100%. She has to bring 100%. We can't both bring 50% and hope that, we'll make it work.
Yeah. I think that's such an important equation, that it's not 50-50, it's 100-100. And you can find someone who does fulfill, the things that, it's okay to say, look, I'm not good at, you know, hanging out with the kids, and he's better at dealing with the kids. And so we were, it fits because I like to go in my room and write and paint, and he likes to run around with the kids in the backyard. That's fine. Those kinds of connections do happen. But if you're saying I need to be with this person because I have very little sense of self-worth, and he's constantly telling me I'm beautiful and giving me things that's going to satisfy me, that will satisfy only until it stops satisfying. And then you're going to feel that sense of emptiness again, and you're going to feel that sense of like, where am I, like you were saying, like, where do I get that from? And I think in the end, we're all responsible for our own selves. We have to be, and there's power in that. And that's what resilience is about. It's about finding out, where is my power in this situation, so I'm not drowning in the fact that, this relationship didn't work. It didn't work, but I'm still here. And I still have these needs. That person couldn't give them to me for whatever reason. But what can I do to provide them for myself? So that's why I think that the people that I know, and for myself as well, when I've ended a relationship and I've been able to then say, he was there to, like, we went out and we saw bands all the time, and we went to dinner, and that was really a powerful thing that we connected over. We had the same interests and stuff, and I missed that. Well, now I'm going to go do that with my girlfriends, right? That seems superficial, but it's those things where you start to say, I have a need for this, and I'm going to go and fulfill it. Now, if you have a need for the relationship to be filled again, and you're going to run out and find that relationship, that's where you get really vulnerable, because now you're just trying to fill a gap.
Well, you know what? That makes me think of kind of back to that serve and return example of, the baby and the mother. The baby needs the mother, and the baby always might need the mother, but the goal is like for the baby to be self-sufficient eventually, and then also have its own babies. And I'm reducing this down to like bare human biology, but if maybe from a more archetypal perspective, you need somebody to take care of you, because when you first come into the world, you can't take care of yourself.
Yeah.
But then you learn how to do it, and then you transition into somebody that can then take care of somebody else. But you need both. It's not me. It's almost like an maybe not linear, but kind of like an arc. You're taking care of, then you take care of yourself, and then you take care of others.
Well, then you come back to being really old, and so you need someone to take care of you again.
Yeah. And I think even in relationships, I would say, and so all my coaching has primarily been focused on people going through traumatic events, but I would say 50% of the coaching that I've done has first call somebody getting on. They might have, I don't know, whatever going on, but there's 50% of the time there's an element of I also just broke up with my boyfriend or girlfriend, and I also just got divorced, and I also just lost my mom, and I think those relationships of having to kind of, when that tie is severed outside of your control, it's almost all of a sudden like the hammer drops, and like all of a sudden I have to be self-sufficient for everything this person was just taking care of. So even if you're in a bad relationship, this person was toxic, you shouldn't have been with them, everything happening, abuse, whatever, but this person was still giving me love, and I still had a warm body to sleep next to at night. And now I have to like figure out how to get, solve that all for myself. Yeah. Immediately. And I think that's what makes it traumatic. It's because you're a baby and you're taken care of, and then you learn how to take care of yourself, and then you take care of others. It's very nice. But in reality, like sometimes it's just cut off.
Yeah.
Like you don't get all of a sudden, oh shit, I got to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Or all of a sudden I have to take care of everybody else. And I think and I guess that's sort of the essence of trauma. It happens, and you have to deal with it. And if you don't deal with it correctly, or you don't process it, or you don't have the time to do that, then it becomes a real wound. It becomes a real issue.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to remind people, what is trauma? Trauma is, in a very simple way, it is having something terrible happen that you cannot process at that time. Like you said, because you don't have time, you don't have the capability, you don't have the maturity, you don't have the opportunity, whatever it is. And I think to give people a sense of, I know that a lot of people are going to come to this to find out, how do I get into the relationship that I want? That's some of the questions that TJ got. That some of the questions that TJ got were really about, I want to be in a relationship and I don't know how to do it. And what we have given you, hopefully, is the understanding that it starts much deeper than where am I going to go to find, the hot guy, the hot girl, right? You have to start internally understanding what it is you need. And there is nothing wrong with you saying, I need blank, whatever it is. I need someone who makes me feel like I'm taken care of. I need someone who's going to make me feel loved. I need someone who's going to just be there so I don't feel lonely. Totally fine. Start, though, identifying what it is that you actually need. And you may find that that's connected to your childhood. Then you can start to understand all those steps, like go online, go to places, step out of your comfort zone, join clubs, go to parties when you're invited, do those things that are hard to do. And that's a whole other thing. Like, how do I step out and feel confident enough to go and ask somebody out and all that? And I think we're going to probably end up covering that, in terms of confidence, in later podcasts. But those things are the easy part if you have done the hard work of knowing this is what I need. Because I'll tell you, there is a sense of comfort and confidence when you know who you are. When you know who you are and you go to a party and you're scanning the room for who am I interested in, and you're solid, you're like, I'm interested in someone who I feel like is, going to be there for me. And that guy seems like he might be the one, but I'm going to go talk to him and actually find out. And I'm not going to, throw myself at them. I'm not going to judge him, but I am going to go with the attitude of, let's see if this works out. Instead of, oh my God, I just saw him across the, like you see this in movies all the time, which is so stupid, I think, to kind of portray this as like the thing that everybody should be doing. But you're not going to look across the room and go, oh my God, he's the one. That kind of attitude is just going to set you up for disappointment, if nothing else, and heartbreak. But if you can look across the room and say, I'm just going to see if this guy might be the one, or this girl might be the one. That takes, that's what we talked about before, is take it down a notch. Do it with a light touch. Don't make everything about some like anime, this is not a Korean drama. Your life is not a drama. Your life is about discovering and putting yourself out there in a gentle way. So anyway, I just want to make that point, because I think if people are coming here and to determine like, what are the steps are really easy. Go out there, meet a lot of people, know yourself. Don't, put all of your hopes and dreams on one person. Go out there with literally the phrase in your head, I'm just going to see if this is the right person. And you do that every few months. Just going to see if it makes sense to move to the next stage. I'm going to see if, what happens if we have sex. I'm going to see what happens if we end up, living together. I'm going to see what, I'm going to see what marriage is like, and I'm going to do my best with it. I'm going to see what it's like having kids, but, it just helps you to always keep, kind of an openness and a flexibility and a self-love position. Because in the end, who's the person you're going to have the best relationship, the longest relationship, the most intense relationship of your whole life? Who?
Yourself.
Start there. Start here.
Hopefully, I think too, like your life is not a movie. If you do want love, or you want to be better in your relationship, or you're, wherever you are, it's probably not going to look like anything that you've seen. And I think something safe to always find, or kind of fall back on, is a foundation. It's a set of maybe loose principles, or some values, some morals, and hopefully, this podcast episode definitely wasn't extensive or nitty gritty, but I think it really outlines some very solid fundamentals that will give you a very, very solid foundation for where to take your relationship if you're in one, or how to find one if you don't have one, or if you're just trying to form that with you, what that might look like. And I think very simple but things you'll always come back to, things you'll always need, things that will always need to be reiterated, things that will always, you'll always need to hear it again. I used to hate that so much, and I still do, like the repetition that and how simple things usually are. Like I'm on YouTube for hours trying to search something. I'm trying to find the perfect book. I'm trying to, but basically the YouTube video, the book, the podcast is basically just reiterating very core basic principles to me, just in a different way that I might be able to understand it better.
Right.
And that's just how I needed to hear it at that moment, to finally just go and just do the simple thing I know I needed to do in the first place. And that's typically how all my coaching calls go too. Like we normally, we know what the answer is. We know what we're trying to do. It's just we have to go through the whole journey, reiterate, get it from a different angle, and then figure out how to just kind of tackle the small thing that's in front of us.
Well, and I think that we can wrap it up like this, that we all think that we're having, our own drama, we're playing out our own stories, which is true. But in the end, we're all trying to deal with the same thing. So if you're missing a relationship, you don't have one. If you're in a relationship, it's not working. If you just broke up with a relationship, please know that you are not alone. We are all going through some level of that. And we're just spinning from, relationship is great, and then it doesn't work out. And then it's, oh, and I got out of the relationship. And well, this is how we are. And like you said, and in the end, it all comes back to the same principles about self-love and self-care and learning how to be there for yourself before you can be there for somebody else.
Yeah. And if you want to dive a bit deeper into some more principles, not just about relationships, but just in life, Bounce Back Generation has the 6 building blocks. Take a look at the site, look around, see if you can implement any of them, or if we hit any of them from different angles that might be more relevant to you at this moment, and keep checking back, because we're always making new stuff.
And I would say that if people want to have that day-to-day support for what you're going through, to follow Tyler Gantz, we'll put all the stuff in the description, because you're there for everybody day after day. And you've got, newsletters that you send with prompts and ideas and things to do. So we're here for you. Bounce Back Generation and Tyler Gant. All right. So if you have questions, please send them to us. You can put them in the comments. You can find, we'll put all the information where you can send us. You can actually send us your questions. You can also go to our website, bbgtv.org, and you'll see a section for this podcast. And if you click there to leave a question, you can leave a question there anonymously. And if you are ever interested, if you have an issue that you want to talk about and you are not shy to join us, we are open to having a guest here in our virtual studio, and talk things through. So just get in touch.